was to walk away from you. Leaving behind the life that we began. I split myself in two. Proud and alone, cold as a stone, rolling down that hill into the night. I could see the surprise.
Captain Baker, and Elizabeth and I have been friends since we were juniors in high school, and we've been best friends since then. So I have known Mark since the beginning. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming out in the sweltering heat on behalf of Elizabeth, Mark's family, his mother, Loretta, and his sister and husband and their family, Tommy and Devin, and the Lynch clan, including Elizabeth's mom, Joan, the Joe Lynch clan, the McCallums, and the Jarretts and the Jannys. In a moment, I would like anyone who would like to come up and share their favorite story of Mark to come up and give to the mic and give it a go. But first off, I want to start off, and then I'll hand it off to Kurt Cherry, Mark's best buddy, and then to the family, and then we'll go to his friends so they can share their stories. As I said, Elizabeth and I have been best friends since we've been in high school. Before that, we were acquaintances, but in our junior year of English class, we sat next to each other, and I found a kindred who to go play with. And we have had so much fun. She was so happy when she met Mark. I could tell when she talked about him and when she looked at him.
Church?
I did, church, social, but I'm not thinking that's where it was. Over the years, the three of us have shared so many great times. I can't pick one over the other. I could, but I wasn't allowed to tell that story. And in the early 90s, we played poker because we were too broke to go do anything else other than take each other's money. And then we boated, we water skied. We've had great dinners at fantastic restaurants, gone to Ranger games, watched a ton of Cowboys games, talked a lot of trash during that time, and hung out at the pool. I've witnessed his smooth moves at the House of Blues. He was an dancer. And like I said before, we've just had so many laughs over the 34 plus years I know Mark. So, I have a Red Bull, but I have been drinking. But I would like everybody to raise your glass and let's have a toast to Mark Goodenough. Mark, you are a great guy. I love you, and you will be sorely missed by all of us. Cheers. 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 And one last thing, please make sure the statute of limitations has run out on any story you have. All right.
Elizabeth probably dread the day she ever introduced us, but I got some great hunting stories of Mark. First, the fire. So we had this lease near Archer City. I can't believe it. We were so proud. We built this huge blind. We were turkey hunting. Didn't hunt it all that weekend. Built this huge blind. Came back the next week. The place had caught on fire. And the whole thing, the feeder, everything. And Mark had bought this brand new pop-up blind, and we built all this brush all the way around it. I pulled up, and we couldn't even remember exactly where we put it because it was all burned up. So I drove and I think, Mark, I think it's down there. And he goes down there. He had the most disappointed look on his face. He picks up this pile of freaking rubble, and it's our pop-up blind that just burned to a crisp. And the feeder fell over. The feeder was green. Now the feeder's black with soot. And anyway, that's the fire. Then there was Hogzilla. So, again, we were spring turkey hunting in Bryson, Texas, and there were hogs every place on this ranch. So we got down there late afternoon on like a Friday, didn't have time to hunt, and it was really nice, whatever, early April. So it was cool enough, and so we just set cots in the bed of my truck. Again, remember my truck, because I never let Mark drive. He drove like a grandma. He goes, "Well, it's my turn to drive." And I go, if you want to pay for the gas, I'm driving. I don't care if it's your truck or my truck. We're going to New Mexico. Elizabeth drove the entire way. Not grandma's end up. So Hogzilla, we got everything, all the blinds all set up, and drove the truck way away from them, and we're just sitting out there drinking some beers, set up our cots in the back of the truck. Started to get about bedtime, and we heard this rustling, and Mark and I have hunted together a long time. It sounded, maybe there's beer involved, it sounded just like a hog, and it kept just coming straight at us. And we could tell it was really big because of the brush it was moving. And so, all right, Mark gets on the hood of my truck, looking over the truck with a rifle. I've got the Q-beam, and it's getting closer. I said, all right, count 3. I'm gonna hit the Q-beam. I mean, he was safety off, chambered, ready to pull the trigger. 1, 2, 3. I hit the Q-beam, and it was one of the farmer's cows. And it was standing from me to Elizabeth, and it was just sitting there like licking the back of my tailgate. I went, holy shit, we just shot the farmer's cow. Yeah, that's Hogzilla. And then my favorite story of hunting with Mark, in the same Archer City where it burned down, was a rattlesnake story. And all of a sudden, I looked down. It had been raining, so it was a little muddy. I looked down and I said, Mark, don't move. And again, we've hunted enough. We know each other's language. I didn't have to tell him. He goes, no. And I go, yes. And I look down, look left. I have my shotgun on my side. I have my shotgun on my side right here. And I look down, and rattlesnakes like to get in where a cow makes a hoof print in the mud. And this rattlesnake was coiled up, ready to strike this far from Mark's leg. I had Chippewas on, so he just had little hunting boots. Chippewas are snake boots, but anyway, I said, like I said, don't move. He said, no. And I go, yes. He goes, don't shoot my foot, please. I have my shotgun, and I mean, you got turkey loads in it, so when it comes out of 12 gauge, it's not spreading out like birdshot. So literally, this far from his foot, this huge rattlesnake was coiled up, fangs open, ready to hit him. And I just go, all right, Mark, don't shoot my foot. I'm like, count of 3. I did 1, 2, and I just pulled that snake apart, and we're covered with snake dust. We literally sat there for 5 minutes just hugging it out, going, holy crap. So, anyway, I got a million more. Some of them aren't GP rated, so anyway. I didn't bring my cocktail up here. Kim, can I have my cocktail? I mean, like I said, I've got a million of them. Mark and I hunted for a long time together. I'm sure Elizabeth dreaded the day she introduced us because she lost a lot of time with Mark because Mark and I hung out a lot. But anyway, he was a dear, 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 dear friend. I love him to death. Cheers to Mark. Cheers to Mark. Cheers to Mark.
We're switching. All right, Sheila, this is her mom. Speaking about turkey hunting,
A few falls ago, I decided I wanted to decorate with turkey feathers. So I said to Mark Goodenough, do you have any turkey feathers I can have? And he said, sure. I'll meet you next week and I'll bring you some. So the hunters here will know he brought me a turkey fan. And it was this big. And I'm going, oh, I only wanted 1 or 2 feathers. And if you notice, there are a few feathers around. And I said, what am I supposed to do with that? And he said, well, I don't know. What do you want to do with it? And I said, well, I only wanted 1 or 2. He said, well, pick them out. So I did. And this is what I have now, are turkey feathers. And every time I see a turkey feather, I will always remember Mark Goodenough. Because when Mark did it up, he did it up big. So here's to Mark.
And now we have Carol.
Well, I'm Carol, and I remember the day Elizabeth was born.
That long ago?
That long ago. And I was just slightly older than her, but I still remember. That was a great day in my life. Then Don, my husband Don and son Kevin and I, we were the first ones that got to meet Mark. And we went out on the boat, we went water skiing, and I'm saying to Elizabeth, where did you find this good-looking man? Oh my God, he was beautiful, just beautiful. But then there was the day I fell in love with Mark, and I never stopped loving him. And that was on their wedding day. He was standing up there watching Elizabeth walk down the aisle, and his eyes just filled with water. And I knew he loved her, and I've never stopped loving him since then, Lizzie. Oh, uh-oh, I called her Lizzie. Uh-oh, edit that out of the video.
And now we have Kevin and his nephew.
Hi, everybody.
It's that radio voice.
I feel a little underprepared. I thought this was the roast of Mark Goodenough. Am I not in the right room? Someone give me a sign. So, my beautiful mother just spoke. For those who don't know, Elizabeth is my aunt, Mark is my uncle, but as an only child, and maybe as the oldest grandchild in the Lynch family, Elizabeth and Mark were always more of a big sister, big brother than an aunt and uncle. And one of the things that I always loved about Mark, he was there for me when I needed him and when I didn't know that I needed him. You know, and for example, when I was about 10 or 12 years old and became a very accomplished skateboarder, he just showed up at my house one time, and that little truck of his, was that an Isuzu? You know what I'm talking about, Elizabeth. Mazda. Thank you, Loretta. And he had a bed full of wood and built me a skateboard ramp. We had never discussed this. He just showed up and did this for me. And then there were other times in my life where it's like, oh, shit. You know, like I don't know if I'm calling Dad about this one. But I bet my Uncle Mark might be able to help me out. And a high school friend of mine, and there was another random dude involved. And we went mudding in this other guy's truck. this vacant lot. And invariably we got stuck. And this poor kid's parents were real hard asses, you know, and he was just terrified. And it was definitely a time when I knew who to call. And it was Mark Goodenough. And he was there. Within minutes, is so excited to pull another truck out of the mud. Yeah. So, you know, Mark was always somebody that I could count on when I needed him. And I'll always love him for that. And I'll always laugh at the times he got hurt doing things that he should not be doing. Thinking back to skateboarding, when my incredibly wise 10, 12-year-old friends of mine discovered a drainage ditch that we could skateboard down. And I don't know how, somehow Mark got wind of this. He was like, I'm there. I think it was his first run down the drainage ditch that he fractured his wrist. But don't worry, Mark was kind of a doctor. You might not know this. He didn't need to see a specialist. He had it under control. He wrapped it up. He wrapped it up. And there's another time, years later, where I made the egregious error of playing Frisbee with Mark. And like I threw it like just a little bit to his left. Like just a little bit like, you know, like that. You had to reach for it. I think he tore his meniscus. Like, I don't know. What was wrong with that guy? Loretta? Like, was there a genetic thing happening there? Yeah. Not to blame you, of course. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm going to keep it blessed. I didn't pull a end on this impromptu speech, but are you playing wrap-up music?
Jeopardy.
But yeah, I love Mark Goodenough. What a great guy. So, my drink's on the table, but cheers to Mark.
Cheers. And now we have Bill, one of his brother-in-laws.
I wore this shirt because I'd be prepared if a Jimmy Buffett cup broke out. No, just Mark loved Hawaiian shirts. I like Hawaiian shirts. I miss Mark. Heck, we all miss Mark. Everybody's got some experience that they've had that comes to mind immediately if you think about Mark. It just never fails. Everybody's got golf tales, for sure. And Mark and I have our history of golf. One day I called him because I had 2 passes, free passes, to play Shady Valley. And so I asked Mark if he was in to tee it up. He said, not just yes, but hell yes. Never mind that it was 105 degrees in the middle of the day. Didn't make any difference. Naturally, the golf course at Shady Valley wasn't very crowded. Nobody but crazy people were out there playing golf. So we played 18 holes. Just as any pace we wanted to. If you wanted to hit the extra ball, well, that was good too. And finished 18, went in and had another beer, and decided to go home. Nope, gonna play a few more holes. So we invented a few games, played a par 5 with 7 irons, putted with our eyes closed, anything to beat the other guy. Of course, we looked like dead men. I had a lot of memories of Mark just sitting around with a ring-size 50 Maduro Partagas cigar. That's cigar lingo for a dark, fat, expensive cigar. And plenty of libation to go with it. These talks usually led to some important problem. But more often than not, it was just two guys bragging and telling lies. And those things always seem to happen simultaneously. Of course, laughing like crazy. I had told Mark a story a long time ago that he thought was just a hoot. So, if in our discussions there wasn't anything to laugh about, somebody just brought up the punchline, and that started it all over again, and a new round of lies and hilarious laughter incurred, just like two crazy men, like I said. Nobody wants to know what the story was?
What's the punchline, Bill?
This was a story from when I was little and lived in a small town. So we had things like sporting goods stores, hardware stores, grocery stores. And there was a notorious guy in town named Bob Peters. And one day a guy was looking for Bob, stuck his head in every doorway, hardware store, sporting goods store, came to the barber shop and he said, "Bob Peters here?" He said, "No sir, just shaves and haircuts." Last short story. In 2010, Mark and Mike Jarrett, another super brother-in-law who was snatched out of our lives last December, be like Mike. Sheila and I all went to Augusta to see the Masters. Mark had allergies, bad allergies. And the Georgia pine pollen was vicious, and it got to Mark. He suffered the entire day. There wasn't enough Kleenex in the state of Georgia to help that runny nose. That's a poor guy. Did he complain? No, never did. Mark was the poster child for it is what it is. It happened, it happened. A lot of things are left. And so I'll just go on missing Mark.
Mother Loretta.
I have a funny story about Mark. I think when he was about 5 years old, we were going up to the family in Cisco, Texas. And one of the pictures is my cousin Marilyn and Mike in Cisco. And Mark was about, I think, 5 years old. So we were going up there, I think, one weekend. It's been so long, I'm not sure. But anyway, we were going up there and we had peanuts to nibble on in the car. So we got up to Cisco and we're visiting, and that night Mark said he had a problem and his nose didn't feel well. So anyway, he kept crying and during the night, and we looked and thought, what is going on? We couldn't figure it out. Anyway, the next morning, it's a little town of Cisco, and so Marilyn's parents knew the doctor. So I don't remember the doctor's name. Do you, Marilyn? Addie? Dr. Addie? Yeah.
A-D-D-Y.
Yes, Dr. Addie. Right. Anyway, he came over Sunday morning and we had looked to see if Mark had any problems with his nose. Anyway, Dr. Addie, for some reason, Mark has shoved a peanut up his nose. And if you know a peanut, if it gets moisture, it will swell. So anyway, it had swelled in his nose. And Dr. Addie finally got it out, so we appreciate it.
First one.
Pardon?
It was not the first one.
But it may not have been. I don't know, but I remember that one, so that was a fun one. We had many more, but anyway.
And now his nephew-in-law, Russ Weiss.
So I married into the family. I married one of Mark's nieces. Married up, for sure. And about 10 years ago, whenever I came to one of the first family Christmases during the White Elephant gift exchange, everybody was passing out wholesome Christmas gifts, candles, cutting boards, slow cookers. Anyway, it was Mark's turn to pick. And I was sitting right next to him in the kitchen. And of course, being the first guy at the Christmas family dinner, I was getting kind of cockeyed views from the entire family, including Mark. So when it came time for Mark to pick his present, I told him, I was like, hey Mark, grab that one right there in front of the tree, the one that I brought. And he opened it up, and his eyes got real big, and it was Bottle Crown. And before anybody had the chance to steal that, he would bust it open and start pouring everybody glasses to make sure nobody would steal that present. Or if they did, it would be an empty bottle of Crown. So after that, I was always in Mark's good. I was in Mark's good graces, and we got along great ever since then. And it could not have articulated anything better than in last December when my father-in-law passed, that Mark went so far above and beyond what he was called to do in order to help out the family. So, love you so much, Mark.
I'm Joan Lynch. I'm the happy mother of this Lynch group. I just want to say welcome and thank you for coming, because I know this means a great deal to Elizabeth and to our dear Mark. We've lost two wonderful son-in-laws this year, Michael, Jarrett, and now our dear Mark. And it hasn't been easy. But I just want to say thank you for all of you for coming. I'm going to say one little thing about Mark. Joe loved playing golf with Mark, my husband. And Joe was not a golfer really, but he had a wonderful gang of friends out here. We're going to miss this place so much. But I always remember one thing that he told Mark, and I thought this was real cute. Just remember one thing, Mark. When you go in to the brush to look for your balls, always make sure that you take 4 clubs with you. I have to introduce my friend Donji. Don Alloy has been a friend for a long, long time. And we were always good friends and had some wonderful times. And he has a great story about Mark. Thank you.
We had a golf group back then consisting of maybe 12 or 15 players that got together every Saturday and played. And occasionally Mark Goodenough would play with us. He was a long ball hitter, I will say that about Mark. He accomplished something one day when I was playing in his foursome that the odds of a professional golfer of obtaining are 100,000 to 1. On hole number 12, which was along Cooper at that time, he scored a double eagle. A driver and a 7-iron into the hole. I couldn't get there with 2 woods. That's an accomplishment I hadn't heard anybody talk about here today. Not all that important. Not all that important as a great issue, but it was something that I'll always remember as long as I live. Thank you very much.
This is Brother-in-law Joe Lynch.
Thank you, Catherine. I just got a quick little thing that when we first got here today, I ran into Loretta and Mark's mom, and we were just chatting for a moment, and she said she'd seen a video that I think is going to be shared with us all later. And I said, when things happen and we lose somebody, you got to hang on to the memories. That's all we have left. And like my mom mentioned, it's been a rough period of time for the Lynch family when we went through many years where nothing tragic ever happened, with the exception of my father passing away. And then within less than 6 months, we lost Mike Jarrett, brother-in-law, and we lost my wife's mother, and then we've lost Mark. And you reflect back on things and think about all the fond times. And a lot of you here know Mark far better than I do. And I always looked at Mark as a guy of few words, especially when he was around me. I don't know why it was, but he didn't say much. But the fond memory that I have of Mark, we were sitting outside, and again, food preparation on things like that sometimes isn't exact, so it takes a little while, and you just have to be patient until it's all done. And I don't even recall who was sitting with Mark at the end of this table down where I had everything all set up. But we had just a fantastic afternoon, and Mark and the other people that were sitting there had a few beers and everything, and I had my phone, and I put together a playlist, and I had a little music box out there, a Bluetooth music box, so we were playing music. And it was just one of those great things. And I'll never forget that Mark, man, a few words, all of a sudden looks at me and he goes, "Joe," he says, "that is the best playlist I have ever heard. I've got to have that. Can you give it to me?" And I said, "Mark, I don't know how to give it to you, but I'll try to get it to you." But Mark said, again, man, a few words. He said, "That is the best music." He goes, "Wow, that was every one of the songs I've ever loved." And I'm thinking, okay, great, I'm glad. But I just wanted to share that because it always meant something to me because, Mark's just feedback of what the event was and the good time that we had. And, I think Mark walked away from that event in peace and having a great time. And it's always good to see. And again, the memory of having somebody having a great time, and you can reflect back on that. So that's what I had to share today.
There's a montage of pictures over there of Mark's life. If you haven't gone and seen it, and I would just like to say that I was the maid of honor at their wedding, and I had hair. Anybody else want to talk?
Yeah.
All right, Kurt's got some more. Back to that.
Many of you probably don't know that I've known Elizabeth Lynch Goodenough, and that girl's 7th grade.
And I still look the same.
How much of Joe Lynch's beer did we steal? His parents got that cooler outside of the hotel. Anyway, Elizabeth could not have made it through any of this without her.
Yeah.
Oh, and actually, a follow-up to the Double Eagle. And I'll just use him as. He goes, "Effort. I tied that hole because somebody made a birdie with a pop." Somebody Mark made a double eagle, but somebody with the pop made a birdie, so they basically got.
Oh, okay.
No, they had 2 pops on that hole. So it was a par 5, and they were high handicapper, and they made a birdie, so they got 2 pops. So Mark thought he won money on the hole, made a double eagle, and he actually pushed the hole with somebody. Anyway, I cannot tell anybody here how much Catherine Baker has met Joe.
All right, the nieces. Watch out. Uh-oh, now we're gonna get some good stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're here to reveal a long-held family secret. Hold on. All right, I'm Sarah. This is Melanie. We are the nieces of Elizabeth and Mark, and the troublemakers. If no one,
Obviously.
So, was it at Christmas or Thanksgiving or?
They usually host at Christmas. I think it must have been Christmas.
Right? I don't know. I don't remember. Anyways, we're trying to recall. We're going to piece this together, so bear with us. So it was a family gathering one year, and they lived on this golf course, so they had a golf cart.
And I think we were 15-ish, 16.
So we couldn't drive yet, so we're like, okay, let us take the golf cart out. So they were more than happy to let us take the golf cart out. And was it you driving?
Maybe.
I don't know, but we took off, and it sounded like that. We took off, and one of us found a cigarettes in the golf cart. Which, you know, when you're 15, you're experimenting and trying to find your way in life, and cigarettes make you feel like an adult, right? So
Mom, I'm sorry, we smoked a cigarette.
probably backwards the first time we put that one out and then lit another one.
And we were just like driving around the golf course like hooligans. We were probably like on 2 wheels, you know, tasting our new freedom, smoking our cigarettes, you know, and we were like, no one will ever know.
No one. So we made a couple laps, probably got a little dizzy because teenagers smoking cigarettes. And then we came back to the house, and when we got back to the house, it was around fall because we had gathered leaves, dried leaves, into a cup holder.
Why?
And we don't
Because
know.
we thought we'd set them on fire, as 15-year-olds do.
You know, like once you find lighters, you start. So we get back to the garage, we pull right in, and then we proceed to light said leaves on fire inside of the golf cart.
Yeah, and then we obviously got rid of the evidence.
Yes.
Or so we thought.
And then we look over while we have a little mini campfire going in the golf cart, and we look up, and Uncle Mark is standing there.
And he came over, and he was like, he picked up the pack of cigarettes, and he clearly knew that we had smoked one. And he looked at the burned leaves that we thought we had cleaned out, but clearly hadn't. And he looked at us and he said, I'm not going to tell your mom and dads, but I know what you did. And you better not ever do it again. And then he winked at us.
Yes. We knew that he probably had gotten himself into similar trouble before, so he was very lenient on us. But then it was Aunt Elizabeth that came in and told us that we were surrounded by a lot of gasoline and propane tanks, so we need to get the hell in the house.
So we ran inside and we've never spoken of it again.
So, thanks, Uncle Mark, for not busting us and getting us in trouble.
I think there's some people that like they probably did. Tell lies, stories for each other. Well, this is Ken, Mark's friend.
Yeah, hi everybody. I jotted down a few notes. First of all, looking out over here, I'll try to get through this without getting too emotional, but Mark Goodenough was loved by a lot of people. So I first met Mark about 33 years ago. Elizabeth was my neighbor in some apartments over in Dallas. And a week or so goes by, I meet Mark Goodenough, and he introduced himself, and I said, excuse me, what's your name again? He says, Mark Goodenough. I thought the man was joking. He wasn't. So anyway, the story continues, right? So his name is infamous amongst the Goodenough family. So anyway, just to share a few stories, Mark Goodenough, my wife and I was building a deck. We bought a new home. I called Mark, said, hey, I got some buddies that are coming over. We're gonna build this big ass deck out back. He says, I'm in. So Mark called me the night before. All my other buddies had crapped out on me. I didn't tell Mark this, but he was the only one that showed up. Now this deck started out at 8 by 8, and it grew to 16 by 32 with 2 levels and a hot tub, okay? But Mark was there to to help us build that deck, and it still is at our house today. Mark knew construction business. He knew the electrical business. Obviously loved golf, hunting. Mark was just a dear friend. I didn't see him all the time, but always October, November, December, we always went hunting together. Mark and I had our first deer lease in just out south of Weatherford, in between Stephenville and Weatherford. And I found this little deer lease, and we were young, obviously, a lot younger than now. But found this deer lease, and Mark said, again, I'm in. That was his word. I'm in. I said, then he said, how much is it? And I said, well, it's $500 for the whole lease. It's like 100 acres. He said, okay, I'm in, but I'll have to talk to Elizabeth first. You're a good man, Mark, Goodenough. I understand completely. So we got our first deer lease about 32, 33 years ago outside of Stephenville. Had a great time out there. And from then on, I moved off, he moved off. We kind of went through life, and we always hooked back up the last 4 months of the year. And it was always deer hunting and turkey hunting in the spring, or deer hunting in the fall, whatever. So just a few stories that I've got that is, he's amazing. But we're all standing around, we're drinking beer in Ozona, Texas. I don't know if y'all know where that is, but it's about 65, 70 miles north of Del Rio. Okay, so we're pretty darn close to the Mexican border. Okay, it's changed a lot from what it was back then. There's more wild people coming across now than what there was back then. But Mark, we were all standing around, we were getting ready to leave, and one of the guys on the deer lease, George, had shot this 8-point buck and had it loaded up in his car before we left to come back home. And Mark comes over there, and we're all, I don't know why we're drinking beer at 10 a.m., but we were. That was Goodenough's idea. But anyway, we were standing around drinking beer, just visitating before we left, and George had shot this deer and loaded it up and everything, and Mark walks over there and looks at him. Said, you know, I think that's the first time I've ever seen a deer in a BMW. This guy had literally loaded a dead 8-point buck in the back, in the gas can, in the gun case, and right in the back of a Beamer. And I'm going, that's a first for me too, Mark. George is a different character, though. You got to understand him. But so anyway, years go by. He started working for Enterprise Car Leasing. He taught me a lot about the car rental business versus purchasing. So Mark was analytical on this, very analytical on this. So anyway, he taught me a lot about it, and I greatly respected that. So anyway, so we're sitting there talking about the car rental business and everything, and he says, by the way, I've got a leased car, or a leased truck. When are we going down to Ozona? Well, whenever you get ready, you know. So we shot off to Ozona like the very next weekend and went hunting. Didn't shoot anything, but we had a great time, drank a lot of whiskey. And I never knew this about Mark, but he was actually a pyromaniac, okay? He loved campfires, and he would literally, I'd put him in charge of the campfire. I'd go in and start some dinner in the camper or whatever. And when I come back out, it was a bonfire. Okay, and I was like, good job, Mark. So anyway, he's out there having a cocktail, and we're reminiscing. And so anyway, we get ready to leave, and we're coming home. And there's a couple other guys that showed up or rode with somebody else, and we'd parked some cars out in Weatherford all the way down. And everybody wanted to ride back with Mark because he had an Enterprise truck with free gas. I like that, Mark. So we all jumped in there, and and one of the guys said, well, I've got to be back by so-and-so, you know. Here it is, 11 o'clock. I think we had to be back by 2 or 3. And it's a 6-hour drive, okay? It's obviously 350 miles. It's a good 6-hour drive. Mark says, no problem. We'll get you back. I said, okay. Literally, that truck grew wings all of a sudden. Mark was doing so fast. And we made it back in record time. 3 hours and 40 minutes. Mark was so proud of himself. Thankfully, back then, we didn't drink and drive, only a 12-pack or 2. But we stopped on the way back. There was just this side of Abilene, other side of Ranger Hill. We happened to pull in. Why? This gas station. We were out of beer. Mark was out of beer. And I was like, oh no. So we pulled over, and there was a convertible Mustang that had rolled in the ditch. There was a cooler out there. And the guy came over as soon as we pulled over and said, y'all want some beer? Yeah, we stopped for beer. Here's a whole cooler. And we got a free 12-pack iced down and everything. And Mark was like, threw that son of a bitch in the truck, we're gone. That was it. I mean, we were gone. So back on the road again, right? So some of the funny stories that we ran into, the situations were just beyond amazing. With Enterprise Leasing, Mark always drove a rental truck or a lease truck, wanted to come down. So we're sitting around the campfire and we're drinking. We're having a pyro party. And somebody came up with a good idea of let's go rabbit hunting. And this is about 10:30 at night. We have to get up at 5 a.m. to deer hunt, right? So somebody had this bright idea. Mark says, I'm in. Yes, I'm in. Okay, so we take off. Mark says, I'll drive. Okay, we'll shoot. So anyway, Mark gets back, and he doesn't know the deer lease, obviously, as well as the guys on the lease. So he's flying down this dirt road about 50 miles an hour. And we have this place in the back part of the lease called the Dolly Parton Hills. And it's called that for a reason, okay? And I've never jumped a hill like that before in my life, okay? Mark gets his lease truck at 50 miles an hour completely off the ground. We're at about 4 foot because it's about a 3-foot drop. He literally brings this thing about 5 foot in the air. And when we land like this on the back wheels, and then we go to the front wheels, and then he goes left and he goes right, and there's dirt and cactus and shit flying everywhere. And I'm like, oh my God, Mark, this is crazy. Well, we happened to run over some barbed wire that was loose off one of the fences. Got it all wrapped up in the wheels, and Mark said, something's going on. We got out, got the flashlights, and by this time, it's like 2 a.m., right? We're stuck in the middle of nowhere, 27 miles out of town, nowhere land, right? Luckily, one of the guys gets a signal because we don't have signals down there, so he calls our landowner. Well, okay.
I don't think she's the gatekeeper. Keep going. Right?
Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, he comes over there and helps us out. So, the last story I wanted to share with you. Really, Mark, Goodenough. My wife and I was freshly married. We're laying in bed. It's like 12 o'clock. Mark calls me up. Phone rings. Back then, this is back before the cell phones. Phone rings. I had just laid down. I'd been asleep about 45 minutes. I hung the phone up. He said, Ken. I said, boom. He calls back in 1 minute. Ken, I need help. Don't hang the phone up. I said, who is this? It's Goodenough. I said, okay. What's up? I said, I gotta work tomorrow. He said, I'm stuck in the mud. Somebody was telling a story about that earlier. He'd like to get stuck in the mud. I said, okay, so call me later. Click. So then he calls back, it's not another minute. And I'm just like, I am dead asleep. I gotta get up at 5 a.m. to work, right? He calls back, I pick up the phone, and I'm just still half asleep. First thing he says, don't hang up the phone. This is my last quarter. He was at a payphone. Okay, so Mark, where you at? Well, I'm over here at Lake Ray Hubbard. Okay. I got up 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, go over to Lake Ray Hubbard, found Mark, and that little Mazda pickup truck was stuck, not in a mud hole, it's a lake. I'm like, you're kidding me. Okay, I got 2 30-foot tow straps, we hook them up, and he looks at me like, are you gonna hook them up? I'm like, I ain't swimming out there to your truck. There's literally, his front is, the driver's seat, you could swim up to it and sit down. I'm like, oh my gosh, Mark, this is insane. So anyway, he hooks it up, boom, we pull it out. Now the truck won't start. I said, I'll pull you up here to the gas station. I gotta go to work. And back then, it was all the way back in Fort Worth, so I had to travel from Dallas to Fort Worth. We get finished up about 5 a.m. and wrapped up, and of course I went to work the next day, dead tired for the entire day. So anyway, he was a great friend. He would pull you out of a ditch in the middle of the night if you wanted to. And he's always the king of one-liners. I'm in. Until we meet again, Goodenough. It's not so long, it's just until we meet again. Cheers, Mark. Very good, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Now I forgot the name. His next door neighbor. I got that part.
My name is Dorothy. My husband and I, we are next door neighbors to Mark and Elizabeth. And before we came from California about 11 years ago, we started praying for a house, but for a wonderful, wonderful neighbor. And God really came through. He gave us the most wonderful neighbors that we possibly could have wished for. And Mark was the kind of man, if he saw something that needed to be done even in our yard, he would come and offer to do it. Of course, we are not, we're much older than Mark was, and so we decided, yes, thank you very much, we accept your help. And to thank him, one time he asked, you know, Jarrett, your fan on your deck must be about 30 years old and it's falling apart. And I said, tell me about it. I know, but I don't know how to replace it. No problem, I'll do it. So I went out and actually went with me to buy the fan, and he installed it for us, and a wonderful, wonderful fan. Matter of fact, we sat under it the last 2 days. But he was the kind of man that you could just fall in love with because he was so helpful to his neighbors. And so I thanked him with a Louisiana crunch cake. And the next time he did something for us, I brought him the same cake. And Elizabeth would say to me, don't bring the cake back to me. And I said, well, you don't have to eat it. Give it to Mark. He loves it. So he was and is still in my memories to be the kind of neighbors that God really blessed us with. And about 2 years ago, I started praying for both of them, and I still am praying. I continue to pray for Elizabeth. But thank you, Lord Jesus, for the wonderful neighbor that Mark and Elizabeth were. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming, for Elizabeth, and for Mark's family. It means a whole hell of a lot to her. She may not be right here, right now, but it does. She's overwhelmed, has been overwhelmed with the support of the golf club, the Gangster Gang, Rolling Hills, her clients, and her friends. So thank you all very much, and her family, of course. But thank you all.
Thanks to Catherine for doing this for us. On behalf of Elizabeth and the entire Goodenough Lynch family, we'd like to thank everybody for coming today and to honor Mark and Elizabeth. Here's some Mark Goodenough. Here you go, Goody. Goody.